Okay, so today we're talking about the intermediate value theorem, and it says let f denote a continuous function if a is less than b, meaning a is to the left of b, and if f of a and f of b are of opposite sign, meaning one's negative and one's positive, then f has at least one zero between a and b. Okay, so this actually is very logical, but it may be hard for you to imagine without pictures, so let's take a look at a couple of pictures. So it says if a is less than b, so we're going to draw just a being to the left of b, so a is less than b, and if f of a and f of b are of opposite signs. Okay, so let's look at what can happen here. So let's say f of a is negative and f of b is positive, okay? Then it says there is at least one zero between a and b. So there's two different things that could be happening here. So if we have a to the left of b, and a and b are of opposite sign, okay? So one's negative and one's positive. So either it's the case that it crosses one time, or it's the case that it crosses many times in that interval. But we know that there is at least one, because if they're of opposite signs and it's a continuous function, it has to be connected, so it must cross at least once, okay? So the other option is that if they are not of opposite signs, so they're of same signs. So if we have a less than b again, so we've got this interval from a to b, where a is less than b, if they are both negative, it's possible that it never crosses the x-axis, but it's also possible if a is less than b and they're both of the same sign, that it does cross once or many times, but then just comes back to that side. So the intermediate value theorem does not speak to this. We would say it's inconclusive when they're of the same sign, because we don't know whether or not it crosses. But we do know that if it crosses, there must be at least one value where in that interval where c is between a and b, where f of c is 0. Okay, so let's try a couple of examples then here. We've got a polynomial on the interval from 0 to 1. They want to know whether or not there is a 0 in this given interval. So we're going to check f of 0 and see what its sign is. We're going to check f of 1 and see what its sign is. And if they're of opposite sign, then we'll know there's at least one 0 on that interval. So let's see. So remember, I love plugging in 0 because 0 to the 4th power is 0, and anything times 0 is 0. So that goes to 0, 0, 0, negative 1, okay? Plugging in 1, that's 8 times 1 to the 4th, minus 2 times 1 squared, plus 5 times 1 minus 1. So that's going to be 8 minus 2 plus 5 minus 1. So we have 13 minus 3, so that's going to be 10. Okay, so f of 0 is negative. It's at negative 1. Okay, and that's when we're at 0. Okay, and at 1, positive 1, we're at positive 10. Okay, so they're definitely of opposite signs, and so somewhere between there, at least once it's going to have to cross. At least once. It could cross multiple times, but at least once it does. Now it says answers should come in the form by intermediate value theorem, and we can abbreviate intermediate value theorem. There exist, I love in Spanish they have a verb called which just means there exists, but it's a much faster word to say, a faster way to say it, but we don't have that in English. There exists a value x equals c on in the interval a to b such that f of c is 0. We're not saying we know what it is. We're not saying it's the only one. We're saying there is at least some value in there that f of c would be 0. Okay, so let's try this other example. We've got a different polynomial, and this time we're looking at the interval from -6 to -5. So we're going to find g of -6, and we're going to find g of -5. Okay, so we've got 2 times -6 cubed plus 6 times negative 6 squared minus 8 times negative 6 plus 2. Okay, negative 6 cubed is 216. 216, and that would be negative 216 times 2, so that would be negative 432. Okay, and then negative 6 squared is positive 36 times 6 will be 216. And then we've got positive 48 plus 2. So that's going to be 50 plus 216 is 266. So 266 minus 432. I have to do a little scratch work here. Because we don't have calculators, right? So knock yourself out. And we had more negatives, so that's going to be negative 166. Okay, all right, so let's find g of negative 5. 2 times negative 5 cubed plus 6 times negative 5 squared minus 8 times negative 5 plus 2. Okay, so negative 5 cubed is going to be negative 125 times 2 is negative 250. Negative 5 squared is positive 25. Plus 6 is 150. I mean, times 6 is 150. 25 times 6. I always think of quarters there. It would be 150. Minus 8 times minus 5 is plus 40 plus 2. All right, so we've got 192 minus 250, negative 58. Okay, so they are not of opposite signs. They're both negative, so it's inconclusive. All we can say is it's inconclusive. We don't know if it does, in fact, cross once or many times in between, or if it never crosses. So intermediate value theorem doesn't speak to that. That's just inconclusive.